Hi, welcome to another episode of the Mosaic Podcast featuring 11 Fleet. Last time we talked about some successful and non-successful import of companies to Taiwan. And today we're going to talk about the cultural difference, especially in hiring and selling. So the hiring is about the management practices. So we have Eunice here, and you're the hiring manager?
I'm the partner, but I'm in charge of recruiting.
Yeah, so she has a lot of experience on this. Why don't you tell us some of your experience and we'll listen to it?
Okay. I guess the most frequently heard management complaints tend to be about the communication styles. Taiwanese people in general don't want to have any confrontation with their superiors. So they really try to avoid any kind of confrontation, even though sometimes they don't really like the tasks they are given. They won't tell you they don't like it. They'll just complain to their friends, but actually do it anyways.
Like me, I don't like any of the tasks I'm given. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, so that's the most common thing that we encounter. So they don't usually give you a straight answer. They just, I guess, passive aggressively.
Like what do they usually say?
Maybe like complain on their Facebook page.
On their
Facebook page about work. But they don't tell you straight away, or they don't tell you.
So they go around.
Yeah. Yeah. So because they feel like the employers should pick up their feelings or their dislike. But sometimes that's not always possible for the employers.
Do you feel that, Boss Mark?
Yeah, I've seen Facebook comments.
Oh, really? Do they tag you?
No, I think when they tag you, it's over.
Yeah, that's too
direct.
Out there, too direct.
Yeah.
So what happened before?
I mean, I think, kind of echoing what Eunice says, I think, it's in Taiwan, I think, especially in kind of workplace relationships, it's a lot of what goes unsaid, right? And then I guess what's difficult, especially like thinking back when I first arrived in Taiwan, one, being young and being inexperienced, and also not having grown up in Taiwan, it was difficult to pick up, right? Because you feel like in a small, like, early on in my career, like very, very small, like companies, like, maybe me and 2 or 3 other staff. But even still, then, in a US context or a Western context, you would think that it could be very, very flat. But it's not so
even
easy.
With 3 people.
Not even with 3
Actually, I think it's also difficult, even not in the relationship that's flat as well. Like, for example, me with other colleagues, sometimes also kind of hard to actually know what other people think because there's a cultural difference. So you have to really try to befriend them and really, ask more how they're doing or what they're feeling to actually know. And you cannot really just assume they will let you know if they have a problem.
Does this communication thing like backfire you anytime before, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think, being direct, right? Sometimes, I mean, I forget the exact instance, but I remember like sometimes, the employee would cry, like, and you didn't, like, from, I guess, my perspective, I don't think I was being overly harsh. I think I was just being direct, but then, the reaction would be like, like tears rolling out. And then all of a sudden, like, especially I think back then as a first time kind of manager or boss, you don't know how to react, right? So yeah,
what happened at the end?
I forget exactly, but it's I mean, it's it's just like simplest things. Now that I think about it, I remember like this one time, like the first time I think I ramped up my hiring, and I went from like something like 2 employees to 12 in a matter of months. And then so everyone was essentially new. And I think I was late. We worked overtime. And then I think the incident was I asked the staff to go buy dinner. And then because I didn't know what they wanted to buy, I gave them, I think, something like 3,000 NTD, which is a lot for like 5 people, especially when you're buying hawker food. So I think my intention was, like, buy whatever you want, figure it out, and then, just give me back the change. But I don't think I said it that explicitly. And then they took them forever. And then they came back with so much food and they used up the 3,000 NTD. And I guess, I was having a long day and I said, well, you're really not exercising your judgment. What I meant was, here, just, you make the call. But what they did was they just used up all 3,000 and there was so much food. You could like feed like 30 people and there were 5 of us, right? and so, this is incredibly like, bad judgment, waste and whatnot. And actually, I think they started crying. And then the next day, all 4 people didn't show up for work.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then I think within a very short period of time, like two people resigned and whatnot. Right?
Oh.
Yeah. So
I think this part also shows like Taiwanese people, sometimes they're afraid to ask questions.
Sure.
So they kind of like discuss and guess what you
right,
really want.
right,
But if they just ask the question, it'll be like
yeah,
easy.
That's right. Yeah. In hindsight, I think, I mean, it's a very, it makes sense, right? But I mean, I think I was probably in my like early 30s, and I mean, like, first time having to me back then, such a big staff. Right. Yeah.
And also such a big dinner.
Yeah.
So what are the other management practices?
Also, you have to kind of get involved there in a little bit in their personal lives, not in their relationship, in their family, how they're doing at home, to actually find out what's going on in their lives. So to make sure they can do well at work as well. So the employees are looking for the managers to set expectations to play a certain role. Employees welcome the prospect of meeting challenges while feeling careful not to be tricked into losing face or taking blame. So so that goes back to they are afraid to ask questions and afraid to make mistakes. So sometimes they just swallow their questions and then do it. And then if something goes wrong, then we'll
cry.
Yeah.
Do you have experience in that one? Like involving in personal, like, really?
Not me personally, but because we recently have new colleagues joining us, so that's a issue that we've been facing quite often, that we always have to tell new colleagues to ask questions if you're not sure. If you're not sure, always confirm, ask, and just don't be afraid to make mistakes, but also use your best judgment. And we're not very high stress kind of people, so we're pretty chill, pretty laid back. If you make a mistake, it's okay. We're not gonna scream at you or yell at you. It's okay. We can discuss.
Do you involve in their personal lives then?
Yes, to some extent. I try not to get too involved, but yeah, we do actually know what everyone's doing in their family or like relationship. Or
do you think it really helps?
I think so. I mean, I think I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm kind of making also some assumptions on my part. I guess I think I think the employees do welcome you're asking, because they feel that if you ask, then
they're important to you.
You care, right? And of course, I do care about their well-being, but sometimes I think especially compared to, let's say, a Western context, you feel that it's beyond like a professional relationship, right? Like I mean, it's sometimes like you're just extra stuff that you have to do, or like extra baggage that you have to bear, right? Like if you, in a way, right? Because it's because in at least in the US, we're very kind of very used to like very clear professional personal lines. Don't take things personally, right? But in Taiwan, I think that would be very, very difficult to demarcate that
because sometimes I hear my friends talking about, oh, my boss likes this person, so he gives him like bonuses and stuff. Yeah, I think that's how Taiwanese people think. Like, if your boss is closer to you, you get more benefits.
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes, in Taiwan, I often find it very interesting that a yes is not a yes and a no is not a no, right? So again, if you're coming from a very kind of a Western or global context, you would think that, oh, I've already explained this, and I'm, this is the way. But then, for some reason, when it's processed in a Taiwan context, it's like, okay, did he really mean a yes? Does he mean So that, and I think to Eunice's point, I think, about speaking up and being direct, I think a lot of it, of course, is cultural, but also a function of, I think, just the educational system or training, right? I mean, I think in Taiwanese, there's a saying that, kids have ears, but no mouth, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I think that is, especially in a traditional family, that is really kind of reinforced at home as well. And of course, if you went through the education system here, the teachers don't want you to be like a smart aleck asking questions and whatnot, right? And so the good kid is actually the one that is
quiet.
Quiet,
do
very
as you're
obedient,
told.
do as you're told.
Yeah.
So I think all that, leads to kind of this workplace kind of culture and environment.
So this leads us to the next management practice that makes a lot of difference.
Just we have to remember the Taiwanese young adults are generally a bit younger than their peer, meaning that most of the young adults that, if they have family in the same city, they're probably still living with their parents. They don't have to really worry about anything in their lives, like laundry or cooking or cleaning. So they're really protected, and so sometimes that they are not necessarily as independent and mature as other young adults in other countries. So it's not unusual to have a discussion when they have a different job offer with their family, discussing, oh, should I take this job or not? Usually the people in Taiwan like to take jobs from big names companies with probably less pay, but because the name of the company is bigger, they will actually prefer that.
Yeah, so I think you mentioned something about a person went back to his mom, and then what happened?
So recently we have a client, their company is a startup, it's a dating app. So the lady that got an offer with the startup rejected the offer because the family did not approve, and apparently that happened quite often with this startup. So that's kind of thing that they pay notice.
Yeah, so Taiwanese parents, they don't understand.
They want
dating apps.
Yeah.
They've never used it. It's actually really popular.
It's really popular, and it's nothing shady at all. But the parents
shady.
don't understand. They think, oh, is it about sex? Oh, you cannot do this. Oh, it's very bad for your reputation.
Yeah. So there's a last management practice we want to talk about.
The last one is there are two more. So the one is no flat organization. So Taiwanese people are used to having a hierarchical organization and may look to the supervisor to play a quasi-parental role. It's not possible for a manager to be one of the boys. Being too casual may have a negative impact on the morale and therefore productivity. And the last one is a 差不多 mindset. So while Taiwanese workers have generally strong integrity and values, there is also a tendency to settle for minimally acceptable work. In Mandarin, this is expressed as 差不多, meaning approximately. That's probably good enough.
So the first one you mentioned about was
no flat organization.
No flat organization.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree on that, because even if you're the boss, you don't want to be too close to your employees because they might use the relationship to like
get more bonus,
or do less work.
Yeah, I mean,
do you think so?
I think an interesting story I heard recently, which I double checked with Eunice actually, because I thought was like, even though I've been here 25 years, it's the first time I heard it. It was that I was speaking to like a company of ours, like a portfolio company, and then we were talking about we were in the process of figuring out whether we wanted to give the CEO a car, a company car. And then the conversation, like our accountant and the CEO said, yes, like we need to pick out a good car because finally, I think we'll project a image to the employees that this is a company that's worth, staying at, and that the car that the boss drives is a projection of financial strength for the employees, right? Like, and to me, even though I've been here like 25 years, this is the first time I heard of it. Cause like, for the first, I was like, well, so what did my employees think of me? Cause like up until like 10 years ago, the first 15 years, I didn't even have a car, right? And then-
you should be glad they're still in your company.
Yeah, I didn't know that I was seen as financially weak for not having a car. But it's funny, right? But then, like for the, our accountant, who's, I would say, local. I mean, she's like, what? You don't know this? It's like a no-brainer. Like, their bosses are out there who will like, go out, take out a loan to, get a Mercedes or BMW so that, their employees will look up to them, right? And so like that was like very eye-opening. This literally was a conversation 3 weeks ago, right? Yeah, and I guess that's to the point that, I think bosses in Taiwan feel that, they need to kind of be different, right? Yeah, superior or something like that, right?
So people will listen to it?
I don't know. I mean,
I think
like
just vanity.
Yeah.
You have face.
Yeah.
But what does the face do?
That's a very good question because we both don't understand what.
You both
we both don't understand why.
Yeah.
I feel like if you have the face, then people respect you more.
Well, I guess yeah, but do you really need to have the visage to have face?
Yeah, there's no intrinsic value, but of course, like this is a good philosophical discussion, right? I mean, I guess, obviously coming from a Western point of view, or, then of course, then I would argue, there's not much intrinsic value. But obviously, if you're like, if you've been dispatched to Taiwan or you have to run the operations here, and then you have, let's say, 100 employees, you're not going to change all 100 of them, right? Yeah. So then it becomes then the GM or the country manager's role to understand what is driving, like, for example, what the rank and file employee is thinking, right? I mean, I could take another example that I completely don't get, right? My dad is a doctor here, and then the way they do pharma sales or medical sales is really the salesperson is on standby and is really working as a de facto assistant for all these doctors, right? Okay. And they like, usually it's probably a very presentable, man or woman, and really they're just like driving the doctors around, right? And in this day and age, you'd think that, that this practice is not necessary, but it is still very, very prevalent. And so like a pharma sales, medical sales, not saying all, but it seems like a lot of what they do is really like shuttling like the physicians around, right?
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think face, 面子 in Chinese is a very important thing to understand in Taiwan or the whole Asian culture. Right. So this also brings us to the selling part. So consumer behavior also revolve around 面子 face. So do you have any experience that when your client, when they do selling, how can they keep the 面子 in mind?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I think especially like for someone who's new to Taiwan, right? Just to your point about the me to the face, right? Remember to always give face to whether it's a counterparty like a partner or perhaps a client, right? I mean, same thing kind of what Eunice discussed about like that supervisor to employee kind of relationship. Certainly you don't want to put your partners on the spot either, right? Like even if let's say the goof was on the part of your partner in Taiwan, I think they want to be seen as still capable, right? So I think similar to that boss-employee relationship, I think the same would also go for like a partner relation or a client relation, right? Like being deferential to whoever you're working with.
Yeah. This also goes to the consumer behavior.
Right, yeah.
So in Taiwan, people usually buy like very expensive stuff and then they save their savings in the last few days of the month. So this makes some luxury brands very successful in Taiwan. Okay. Do you understand this part?
Yeah, maybe I'll take a crack at it first. I think in traditional, I say Taiwanese or Hokkien culture, right? I think there is also a saying that you want to be more generous to to an outsider, and you want to penny pinch on yourself. So if you look at Taiwan's gifting culture, a lot of it is like that, right? Like so in Taiwan, for example, in a like you may have a very penny pinching company or a boss, but then when it comes to like the 3 major holidays, 中秋节, Mid-Autumn Festival, Lunar New Year, and then the Dragon Boat Festival. In Taiwan, it's very typical to give out corporate gifts, right? And then sometimes, I'm surprised, like, like, why is it, like the gifts that you get, right? Because that it's a very kind of conservative, traditional kind of penny pinching company, and yet when it comes to gifting, they go up overboard to show that they gift well.
And sometimes the content, it doesn't even matter, but the box has to be special.
Box has to be
so big.
Yeah. So even selling in Taiwan, your product has this aspect.
Right.
So sometimes if you like sell special things in Taiwan with the good marketing and good box, I guess, it sells easier. Do you think?
I agree. I mean, like, I think, the presentation, right? That's why I think when you go to the department stores in Taiwan, like everything seems very kind of souped up, very, very grand, right? And then, I mean, like the example I like to use is actually cars. So, if you're somewhat familiar with cars, correspondingly, when you go up on the cars, the engine size should go up, right? But in Taiwan, people actually just care about the brand, and then you'll notice that the engine size is usually the horsepower is not there, right? But I guess in Taiwan that works because it's a show of strength. You could drive a Mercedes without the proper horsepower because it's a Mercedes. It doesn't matter the
it's
horsepower.
like I don't have money to buy Krispy Kreme, but I have money to buy Chanel.
So
another thing we want to look at on consumer behavior is the essential needs of Taiwanese people.
Right.
It's a little different from foreigners, I guess. So do you have any example?
I mean, I guess in terms of, I think to the previous point and this point is like, for example, I would say in the West, I think, when you're selling something, you actually, when you kind of project an image of uniqueness or individualism, that's actually a positive. But if you take that same approach here in Taiwan, that might backfire, right? Because if you're the only person holding this clutch, then that might not be a good thing, because actually here, it's, people, and perhaps you guys can elaborate because you guys are female consumers. Here, actually the vast majority of people actually want collectivism. Like, I want to know who is also carrying this particular purse, and I also want it, right? So I saw like this one stat for Japan that I think probably my guess would, it's very similar in Taiwan. So I think a few years back I saw a poll like something like among 25-year-old women, 18 to 25-year-old women, or 18 to 30-year-old women, something like 94% of them own like a Louis Vuitton or Gucci kind of purse, right? And so I guess in the Taiwan context, I don't know if it's quite 90-some%, but I think it's pretty high. Like in the past when I had, hired like recent grads, and they a couple months they get their salary, the first thing they purchase is also a brand name, kind of purse or wallet, right? And so I think if we use a US analogy, like for example, Etsy, which is the handmade platform, that does very well in the US. But like, I think this handmade stuff actually does not do so well in Taiwan, just because, well, it's pretty, but like, who made that? Like,
who made that? And if you buy it, no one knows where it's from.
A very niche market.
Right. So I think, that is, I would say, still the prevailing mindset here in Taiwan.
So the essential need is still being recognized, I guess.
Right. I think recognition is important, right? Yeah.
So as we come to the spending habits of Taiwan, this makes a lot of difference in how to sell your product too. Do you have any examples?
Yeah, I mean, because of Taiwan's market size, which is not big, it's only 23 million people. I would say that for foreign companies, if they're looking to, let's say, sell something like a Coca-Cola, a soda or something like that, where you maybe make, I don't know, 50 cents off the person, then Taiwan is a limited market, right? Because it's capped at 23 million people. But I think where Taiwan does well is like, Taiwanese are trendy. Again, Taiwanese, for better or worse, we could say they like nice things, or they like things that, kind of confer status. So I think if you're operating something like something that's high-end luxury, whether it's a product or service, then Taiwan is, or especially Taipei, it's a great place to have a foothold, right? Because like, just think of it as Tokyo or Hong Kong or Singapore, right? I mean, the for a niche kind of high-end product or service, I think the consumption base is large enough in Taiwan.
So there's something called 月光族 in Taiwan. It means you spend all your money in the first 10 days of the month, and you like eat 吃土, you eat mud in the end. So if you sell in Taiwan, like, you most likely sell in the beginning of the month, like when you get your salary. So this is something you can keep in mind when you do marketing.
Yeah, definitely.
So is there any other thing you would want to add on, either selling or hiring, about the Taiwanese culture?
I think, I would just conclude and say that, like any other foreign market that you enter, right, there's always a need for localization. And so I think the Taiwanese practices are not crazy. I mean, I think I've been to different markets, and I think, regardless of which market to enter, you cannot assume that will be exactly the same as the home market, right? So the key, I think, with market entry, especially foreign market entry, is just having the ability to adapt locally. But of course, part of learning, part of achieving success is doing your homework and understanding, what are the levers, that will get the consumers to consume your product or service.
Yeah, so keep all these behaviors and cultural differences in mind to start your business in Taiwan, and hope you do a good job. Thank you for listening to today's podcast, and see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.